Are you looking for help in setting a goal for 2023? Do you have some physical challenge that you want to meet this year, that this is going to be the year that you're going to get it done, and yet you're not quite sure how to go about it? Well, I'm Dr. Amy with Physical Therapy for Everybody. I just finished setting my goals for 2023, and I'll talk to you about all of them along the way. But today what I really wanted to focus on is what is my physical goal for 2023. So it's actually a little bit split up, and that's how I'm going to explain this whole process of what I'm doing to help you understand how I break down physical goals and go through that thought process of figuring out what is it that I need to be doing today, next week, for the next month, and the next year to be able to achieve that goal. So our goal is that we are going to be running the Dopey in 2025. So the Dopey is a 4-race challenge at Disney World. You may have heard me talk about it before because we were supposed to do it, before, but some things came up, right? So what it is, on Thursday there's a 5K, on Friday there's a 10K, on Saturday there's a half marathon, and on Sunday there's a full marathon. And if you do all 4, that's called the Dopey. So obviously, big goal. Now, I have been running for years, literally over 20 years at this point, but it's still the Dopey, right? So there's definitely some things that I need to work on. So in 2024, the goal is going to be working on increasing my distance to get to that marathon distance. 2023, therefore, needs to be focused on the half marathon distance. Now, I have been running regularly, I mentioned that, but it's still different to be in race shape as opposed to just running regularly. So to get into race shape, I want to get my distance up to that 13.1 miles. I like to always overtrain, so I want to train to that 15-mile distance, so that 13.1 starts to feel easy, as easy it can be. I'm not like the fantastic runner here. I'm not going to be a Boston qualifier. It's just not who I am. But that's all right, because it's still good for me, and it's still good to have a good challenge and a physical challenge to be getting ready for. So my physical challenge for 2023 is to get into half marathon race shape. So what do I need to do? I've already been running, so I need to just up my running schedule. I need to sign up for some races because you can't get into race shape if you don't have some races on the calendars, friends. And I also need to work on some of my problem areas because there's definitely been some things that I've let slide during COVID because I didn't have a race, so I wasn't really worried about it. So for me, I've come up with an exercise program that I'm going to be doing every single day that's going to be addressing some of these issues. And there's going to be another video where I'm going to share that with you. And again, not only what the program is, which I'll share with you, but why I chose that program to be my daily program for 2023. So I'm going to be doing that every single day to address some different issues, like the fact that my hips are tight because I don't stretch enough. Does that sound familiar to anybody? The fact that my hips are not strong enough to run a half marathon at this point. They can do 10 miles, but that's it at this point because that's the furthest I've run in the past couple of years. So I need to up my game on my hip strength. I need to up my flexibility. I've got some foot stuff that I'm dealing with, and I'm working on some different orthotics and stuff like that to really get everything in place. So, kind of explaining the whole idea of how I broke this down. So we set up the goal of 2025 for Dopey. Now, I don't know if you're familiar necessarily with the Disney races, but you have to sign up like really far in advance, and you really need to know like this is when I'm going to do it to have enough time to train. So we decided that we could spend 2024 actually training for this. So that's why we're signing up for January of 2025. Backing it up, what I decided is I needed to really get that half marathon distance, racing quality distance in place this year, and then that way I can just focus on the marathon distance for next year, because that's really going to be the challenge, is running that marathon after the half marathon, right? That's It's going to be a challenge. That's all there is to it, friends. Doesn't matter how hard I train, it's going to be a challenge, but we're definitely up for it. So, thinking about what are going to be my obstacles to be able to train for that half marathon, to be able to get into that shape. So I, luckily or unluckily, already know what those issues are. They're the issues that have been bothering me for the past couple of years that I've just kind of let slide because it wasn't really a problem, but it is definitely going to become a problem as I get into that half marathon shape again. So what I encourage you to do if you're coming up with a big physical goal is, first thing, look at a reasonable timeline. If you want to run a marathon in 2 years and you haven't gone running in the past year or two, or maybe more, that's all right. You can definitely do it in 2 years. But you need to start now, and you need to figure out what that running program needs to look like. But I mean, it can be anything. It can be hiking the enchantments. It can be going to hike to Machu Picchu. It could be anything that you want to be able to do. You just got to figure out how to break it down and give yourself a reasonable timeline so that way when you get to that big event, you're going to have success. The next thing to think about is, what are going to be my obstacles? Now, if you haven't hiked or run or done that physical thing before, you may not yet know what those are, but a lot of people get away from exercise because of an injury or something that was bothering them that they just never really dealt with, and then they come up with this physical challenge that they want to complete. They already know that that was a problem in the past, but they don't really want to talk about it too much. So be really honest with yourself. What are the things that I feel like I am gonna potentially run up into problems with? And it could be, I've heard other people have run up with against problems with this particular hike or run or whatever. This is what I've seen friends and people I know face up to. So if you don't know personally for yourself at this point, that's okay. But consider, what you may know from your community, from your resources of what they've struggled with, so that you can start getting a plan in place to address those things before they become a problem. Because it's much harder to deal with something after it's an injury. If we can prehab it, if we can get my hips stronger before I go and run a race, obviously I'm going to come out of that stronger and able to move forward with my goals. The third thing I want you to look into is, what gear am I going to need? I am very adamant, you gotta have the right gear for the job. Whatever that is, whatever it is you wanna do, you've got to have good gear, and you definitely wanna test out your gear before the big day. So start looking at, what is it that I need? Do I need running shoes, hiking boots, poles, whatever it is, it may be swim goggles, maybe you have a swim goal, but swim goggles that I can tolerate wearing for hours at a time, right? Because man, I gotta tell you, it's really hard to find a good pair of swim goggles you can wear for a long period of time, right? But if you're gonna do a long swim, you need to have something that you're gonna be able to keep on, especially if it's open water and you don't have to be stopping and all that stuff, right? So it's time for a gear check. You need to figure out, what is it that I'm gonna need, and maybe you don't need it now. Maybe you're gonna do a running goal, but you gotta start with walking because you haven't run before. That's fine. Maybe you don't need the running shoes now. Maybe you need a good pair of walking shoes, but start looking into it. Start going to the running store. Start trying to find out what your gear is gonna be. Again, access your community, there's tons of stuff online, and I know that not everything online is gonna be the greatest of resources, but if you look around and you start seeing the same opinion again and again, it might be something to try out. Or they might have ideas on, hey, here's the things I wish I'd known before I hiked Half Dome, and make sure you take these things with you. Super, super good information about hiking Half Dome, by the way, on the interweb. So definitely get your gear together, figure out what you're gonna need, start testing it out. Everybody knows that you don't wait until the big day to bring out whatever it is. You want to have trained in the gear that you're going to be doing the thing in, because you want to have a chance to put some miles on it and make sure that it's all going to work for you. So, what are your physical goals for 2023? I would love it if you would drop them below, and I'd love to hear your plan that you are implementing to make sure you hit those. Another one of my goals for 2023, my business goal, is to get my YouTube channel to 1,000 subscribers. So I would be very grateful if you would help me achieve that goal by hitting that subscribe button, punching that like button, and getting the word out about what we have here and the resources at Physical Therapy for Everybody. All right, watch the next video. We're gonna have the whole, my morning exercise routine and lots of other tidbits along the way. See you soon.